SharePoint again.
Again, I guess. I guess we don't get enough of it. I don't know.
So one of the major things that happened recently is we decided to go to the Microsoft 365 community conference,
Whoop whoop.
and whoop whoop. And we learned a lot. We learned a lot about SharePoint, a lot about Viva, and I think that this is kind of going to be a recap of some of the cool features that we saw, some of the cool conversations that we had, and what we're really looking forward to coming out of this entire conference and this entire experience. But mainly, I wanted to talk about the changes coming to SharePoint because there were some pretty big reveals in that area. And then that kind of leaked over into Viva and to Copilot and really all the things.
Teams.
Yeah.
Everything.
And we discussed before, SharePoint is the backbone of kind of all data storage in Microsoft 365. So when they told us like, hey, we're going to change some things, I was a little worried because the last change that we had was modern sites, and that was like 5 years ago or something now. And
definitely due for a change.
Yeah, we're due for an upgrade. So number one thing that I saw for SharePoint was they're going to change the way that we can build pages.
Indeed. And one of the things that was really exciting about the way we build pages, or where we will be building pages, is Copilot.
Yeah.
They're introducing prompt-based site creation where you provide Copilot, essentially a prompt of what you're looking to build, and it does its magic and builds it for you.
And one of those cool things is adding in grounding data. So for those who aren't aware, grounding data is something like a document, a picture, or something to do retrieval augmented grounding, which is a whole nother thing, but we won't get into that. But you would be able to say, hey, here is a document. Maybe it's an HR document or something. Turn this into a page for me.
Yeah.
And it'll do that.
Yeah. It's magic. It's magic. There's nowhere else to describe it other than magic.
It looks really cool. I'm not really sure how it's going to really make the pages look right. I think that that's going to be part of this new look and design, where we're going to be able to store fonts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot coming to that specifically. You got the whole brand center that's, now GA, that'd be rolling out here shortly to all the tenants out there in the world.
And what is brand center? Because I know, SharePoint branding has always been kind of the crux of it. We've always had issues. We've always had to go in and use PNP templates framework to be able to deploy to get real custom. And then even then it was like 90% custom. It wasn't real custom. It was, like I said, fonts is a huge thing that people have been asking for a long time. A lot of people are very big sticklers about font.
People love their font packs, man.
People love fonts.
They do.
And so what is the brand center going to give us? Like, what is the change?
Yeah, so the brand center is going to introduce a lot of things. I think we'll see a lot of things roll in gradually. But for the initial push, you should see things like fonts. You should see things like theming, things like that just allow you to build your brand across your M365 environment and bring everything together. It's probably what we'll see ship first.
And we used to have some of this with hub sites.
Yeah, so hub sites, you're able to apply theming to the hub, and then that will connect to the sites connected to it. But it misses that idea of
random page generation of whoever.
Somebody creates a page and has no template applied or nothing to do with your company applied, where this content center or branding center will allow you to set that template across the organization. So all your sites kind of inherit, those core values that you've set up as part of your brand.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. I think that it's going to take a lot of the guesswork for people. We've done projects before, and colors are super important to organizations.
Yeah.
Those branding packages, marketing teams spend a lot of time and a lot of research on trying to figure out the best color, the best pattern, the best font. Really how to brand an organization. And then you get in and you're like, oh, I'm going to get on the intranet. And it's like, well, that blue is not FSI blue, right? Or that red is not the right red, or that font's not the right font. And we never had a way to really control that before. So I'm really excited to be able to do that. And then hopefully Copilot will leverage the brand center to really push things out.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how how the Copilot site creation takes into consideration those branding elements that you set in Brand Center.
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything around that yet, but I would imagine it's going to be there, or it will be there.
I really
eventually.
hope. If anybody's listening, we'd really like to see Copilot utilize what's in Brand Center. But I'm sure somebody already, this is not a new idea. I think that's been since the beginning.
If Microsoft needs new ideas, hashtag FSI strategy.
So we're going to see the new Brand Center roll out. We're going to see a new way to design sites, which is more of a WYSIWYG type of creation than we had before, being able to like expand pictures or drag and drop elements like font, for instance. That was something that we were never able to do, is like take a picture and then drop on top of it.
You were always kind of like limited on placement within the page, and it seems like with these new elements being deployed, you'll have a lot more flexibility on placement, on not just the heroes or web parts that you're using, but within the page where you're going to place that content.
It was much more like forums before, where you had kind of a structure and you had to fit within those boxes, right?
Yeah, you had that invisible grid
mm-hmm.
that everybody knew was there, but nobody wanted.
Yeah, nobody wanted the grid. We all pretended not to. We did a lot of HTML to be able to get rid of the grid, and build out actual custom pages for people. And I remember before there was a header and a footer, and those are all things that have come over the years. But this is a big change for us. This is something that we've been looking forward to for a while, and I think that it will produce some great results out of it.
Yeah, I think we'll start seeing a lot more engagement with the overall site design process. Right now, the branding side, most organizations are fine with just a regular site template, but I think with these elements being introduced, we'll see a lot more in the customized and creative side of the site creation.
Yeah, and I think that leads me into some of the other things that we're seeing come out of Viva, which is being able to really bring data to the person versus send the person to the data. And what I mean by that, so everybody knows, is a lot of times when you start at an organization, we come in and you're like, oh, you go to this site, or you click on this thing, or this is where that data is located. And you push the person to that data. And what we really have realized is that doesn't work. One, it relies on a lot of people to do a lot of onboarding tasks and a lot of shadowing or shoulder tapping, or, it happens all the time. Hey, John, where's this document? It's like, oh, well, it should be in this area. And then you click around and eventually you find it. So Copilot's going to help us surface a lot of that data. But recently they released that Copilot will be able to do metadata tagging from that document. So something that we've used in SharePoint for a really long time, which is metadata tags, is going to be natural, or more natural, because it'll come directly from the AI versus relying on a person to actually do it. So now it'll be more of a sanity check from that person, versus like, oh God, I got to drop this into this thing and I got to add the metadata. And that, as you know, was always fun to enforce people to use metadata.
Yeah. And I think to your point, one of the two key things I get out of this, not only with Copilot are we kind of alleviating that pressure for someone to apply those metadata tags, but out of it, we'll actually get more consistent tagging across all your site collections and lists that you have this metadata in.
Yeah, and that's going to be key to surfacing things later and doing things like topics and everything else, which, we still don't have an answer for Viva Topics. I'm hoping we get an answer one day on what's going to replace it, but I do start to see some of these like metadata features and everything that are coming out of Copilot that are very similar to what we were seeing in Viva Topics. So I'm happy about that. Another thing that I think it's coming out, or it's already been released, is approvals in list. And the reason I bring that up is because we use metadata to help with approvals. Is this in a draft state? Is this in a published state? Is this, already been converted? Doesn't need to be converted. We use a lot of that metadata in our workflows to ensure the document handling is done properly. And adding that in directly into the list and the line.
Yeah, that whole list experience is really interesting.
I know. I mean, list experience, I think they've tried to change this a lot. And I think that they're starting to get it to an area where it's going to be easy to use. Microsoft List, which is all built on SharePoint List, if you didn't know that, they're making a really big push to start to get that to be used for like basic data entry and basic forms and things like that.
Even so much more. I mean, you look at all the things coming to automations within lists, and it's pretty impressive to see how far they've come in just such a short period of time with it.
Yeah, I mean, List were always like this redheaded stepchild of.
Hey, now, two redheads in a room.
So, moving on to kind of where I see things with Viva coming, they're adding a lot. Viva is kind of becoming the way to surface this data to the people via Viva connections, where you're now going to be able to hook directly into SharePoint sites and even documents to surface data like an HR policy, for instance. Maybe you have an HR page. I always go to HR because it's an easy thing, right?
Yeah.
But that could be for anything. It could be for surfacing data from Dynamics. It could be anything that you're already using in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. Bringing that in and having that as the landing page in Teams, really driving home that Teams is the hub for teamwork, but now they've added so that Viva Connections will just be a standard page. So you could actually use that as a landing page for somebody when their first time run, right? Like they log into the website for the first time and now they have connections with all of these little adaptive cards, which we love adaptive cards. Love, hate, I think.
Love looking at them.
Yeah.
Hate building.
But that's one of the improvements that they came out with that we saw was adaptive cards are getting an overhaul with V2 to make it much easier to add data directly from SharePoint into these cards. Because a lot of times that's where people are going, right? You need to surface something that you already have stored in SharePoint. You just need to be able to drive that data to that person. And you can do that by job role. You can do that really through anything in Viva Connections. So I'm excited for that. As a lot of people out there know, I'm a huge Viva person. I love Viva. I think that it's going to become the next big thing in the Microsoft kind of ecosystem. I mean, other than Copilot. But, I think that Viva actually is a great platform that's really in its infancy. But some of the things that I'm seeing come out of it are going to allow users to be more effective, to surface data faster, and really utilize some of these Copilot resources.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see how Viva, is becoming this employee kind of collaboration zone where it's allowing your employees to find information, interact with other employees, which, in today's world is crucial to have that employee interaction.
Yeah, one of those things that we use is Viva Engage. We use it for different various reasons, and there's a lot of use cases for Viva Engage. But I found that the question and answer feature is excellent because not only is that going to start surfacing data to Copilot, which is great, but it also allows that data to be surfaced when somebody searches directly in SharePoint. So if you go up to your little search bar at the top and you search for something, if there's been a question and answer there, it's already going to be surfaced up. So you'll be able to get that data, and then you can link your data into SharePoint from that Q&A. So if somebody's like, hey, does anybody know where to find the HR policy in a question and answer form, you can link that over and then that'll surface as well. So there's lots of ways that Viva is helping surface data and getting responses from people. But let's pivot a little bit to talk about Viva and Copilot, because you were just looking at some cool stuff and we were discussing a little bit. And I was like, let's jump on camera and talk about it. But, Viva is really how we're going to kind of push Copilot, it seems.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they're doing with Viva and Copilot to kind of, in my opinion, not only push Copilot to organizations, but also, give that subtle push. Hey, Viva's here.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Viva, right? So there's a lot of things coming. There's a whole kind of learning center component that's going to be coming out with Viva Learning. That's going to allow you to learn about Copilot in M365. There's a bunch of dashboards that are going to be coming pre-built to allow, leaders within your organizations to understand how your users are leveraging Copilot. That way you can maximize, that effort there.
Yeah. And to loop this back around, one of the cool things that you were showing me was Viva Amplify. There's going to be tracks to be able to basically do internal marketing for your teams, right? So that different organizations can get the word out to, hundreds or thousands of employees. Funny thing is Viva Amplify is built on SharePoint and SharePoint pages. So once again, like this all loops right back around to like SharePoint and where things are stored and how these things are changing, and SharePoint really becoming we joke about it, but a microservice that like is the kind of the content and storage service that underlies everything. And maybe you're not going to use it as much. Maybe you'll build more things in Amplify. Maybe you'll build things in, Viva Connections. Maybe you'll build things in Teams, and you'll create a channel, and that creates a document library, right? You're still using SharePoint. You still have to administer SharePoint, but like the way in which we're doing it is really starting to change a lot.
Yeah, the way we're going to be interacting with the data in SharePoint, I think we'll see change a lot over the next couple of months.
And, these things are rolling out. They're not GA yet. I think the only thing that's kind of GA is the Brand Center.
Brand Center is GA.
I think the Viva Insights for Copilot is GA now.
It should be GA, or it's soon
or it should be rolling out.
Yeah.
You do have to enable certain things on your environment in order to see that. So you're going to have to do something like go in, turn on the Copilot thing, and you do need admin creds for that. That also being said, there are certain things within Amplify that you have to have administrator or certain privileges. So none of this is outside the realms of our standard security. It actually integrates directly into it. I'd wish that they'd loosen up on what you need for Viva Amplify, but that's a whole nother ball of wax that I don't really want to get into.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, it's still such a new feature, and it's great, but we see a lot of ways that it can improve, and we're really excited to see these improvements coming out in the next couple weeks. But thanks for jumping on air with me. Always. I was really excited to just kind of let's talk about what we saw and try to wrap it up pretty quickly. And I think that we kind of reviewed most of what came out for Viva and SharePoint. And of course, there's more, and there's more Copilot, and we're going to talk about that.
More Copilot, more
teams rooms, a lot of features that are coming out soon, and that are on the roadmap. So stay tuned with us and stick around. And we're going to talk about more of these new Microsoft things. And thanks for joining me.
Always.
And we'll talk to you next time on